Welcome to our second live Zoom call. This is the Rhubarb Collective. We're very happy that you've joined us today, and I'd like to introduce your moderator for today, Chris Hughes from BC Hughes, and he's invited a guest, Mark Vandercliff from Connect CX in Traverse City, Michigan. So Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you to get us started today.
And today's topic, what we're looking at, is called the swivel. And the swivel, some of you have heard me or us talk about that as it comes out of the word pivot, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But just to introduce who the Rhubarb Collective is, we've got myself from BC Hughes. We've got Amanda Joplin from GSM Project. Amanda is down there. We've got Fran Hohal from CBRE Tourism and Leisure Group. Fran, you're not, oh, there she is. We've got Jill Vandal from the Tourism Company. Jill, we've got Shannon Guihan from the Travel Corporation. I probably butchered her last name, but that's okay. Rebecca Godfrey from CBRE Tourism and Leisure Group. And that's it, and all of you. So we've got a real good mix of DMOs, operators, government people. We've got the infamous Paul Pepe. We've got Laura Ross on the call, just doing some shout outs. So it looks pretty good. We've got Joanne Wolnick from the South Coast, really close to Michigan. But just some rules before we get started here. This is call number 2 out of 6. So for the next 6 weeks, we're going to do 6 Zooms, and each one of us from the Rhubarb Collective is going to lead that. And we'll have their 30 minutes long, and I don't want to go into too many rules and eat into that time. But if we can we're going to stay on mute while our presenter, myself and Mark, are going to go through some conversation, and then we really want to incorporate your ideas and get your feedback. So the back half of the 30 minutes is all about you, so you guys can participate. Remember to introduce yourself and say where you're from when you're speaking. You can use the chat on the side if you want. And at 5 minutes left, I'll give a little warning. And if you don't get a chance to ask your question, feel free to email any one of us. You can find there's a contact form on the Rhubarb Collective website. So as mentioned, today's topic is all about the swivel. And I just want to give you the definition of swivel because I think it's really important that we all are on the same page with it. And the noun is a coupling between 2 parts, enabling one to revolve without turning the other. And I think if we think about that in our current situation about what's happening at the core and how we're having to rotate around it. So it's not a direct motion, it's a rotation going around it. And the verb of swivel is turn around a point or axis on a swivel. So I think it's very relevant to the tourism industry, to what's happening. And I thought that with this topic, we'd go stateside because we've all had a lot of conversation about what's happening here in Ontario and here in Canada. So I thought I'd bring in a colleague of mine that I do a lot of work with, and he's a peer and a good friend, Mark Vandercliff. And I just want to give you a little bit of background, and then he's going to go through some of their experiences as we look through the past of different crises that have happened. So Mark is a systems and experience designer. Mark has been working in human-centric design for over 30 years. His work helps clients understand all aspects of a customer journey, empowering staff to deliver an experience that's clear, relevant, and human. He previously spent 13 years as the president of Corbin Design, a world-class environmental graphic design firm, where he was the lead strategist for healthcare, higher education, civic, corporate, trails, and tourism initiatives throughout North America. And that's how I got to know him, because he did the first destination wayfinding strategy here in Ontario a number of years ago, and it's been a hit ever since. In his previous role, he was lead strategic designer for the 2014 Destination Northern Ontario Wayfinding Strategy. In March 2020, he completed the Lake Superior Circle Tour Infrastructure Strategy. He lives in Traverse City, Michigan, which is, if you haven't been there, is one of my favorite places in Michigan. And on this past Tuesday, he celebrated 30 years of marriage with his wife, Suzanne. So welcome, Mark, and congratulations on 30 happy years. I hope 8 of them were really happy.
That makes me officially really old. At least it seems to me like I'm old, but thank you. And Chris and everyone else, thanks for inviting me to come on. So Chris and I, as you mentioned, have worked together on a lot of things, and we also do a monthly mentor call. And so as we were doing that call, he was like, hey, I have an idea. And so I collected some examples from past disruptions from the Traverse City area and other places to share with you about how certain organizations have pivoted in the past. And so just so you know, this will be part of a blog post that you can see on the Rhubarb Collective site, correct, Chris?
That's correct.
We'll
Yep.
launch that afterwards. So, so I'll just grab a few examples from this. So after 9/11, we down here at the National Cherry Festival, of course, the terror attacks forced all the concert venues to prohibit bringing in backpacks and coolers and other things. And so the Cherry Festival turned it into a profit center, actually, by providing transparent backpacks for sale for people. And so if you had, you know, a blanket and other things, you could buy a transparent backpack within the boundaries of that particular festival venue, and then you could have a bag. And it led to more sales, and it expanded the Cherry Festival brand well beyond the event itself. And then similarly, when people started using vehicles as ways to harm other people, Homeland Security down here mandated that barricades be a part of any festival in order to keep that from happening. So what the Cherry Festival folks did was reach out to local car dealerships, had them bring vehicles to create barricades that were actually branded with Cherry Festival magnets. They got the cars out in front of a lot of folks. They were much less expensive and much more portable than water barricades or concrete barricades. And so that created an even more substantial barrier, saved a lot of money, time, and created new sponsorship opportunities within the Cherry Festival itself. So interesting ways that we pivoted. Back in 2008, the market crash, and after that, in 2010, I happened to be flying back from a business trip, and I sat next to a family that had come up to Michigan from Florida, and they were flying into the Traverse City Cherry Capital Airport. So I struck up a conversation with them, and they said, you know, Pure Michigan has reached out to markets all over the country, and we've been hearing so much about this Mackinac Island that we just had to come and see it for ourselves. And so they had someone plan them an itinerary starting in Traverse City, going up the east side of the bays, ultimately ending in Mackinac Island, and from there they were going to fly out of Pellston and back home. So I thank them profusely for coming and bringing their money and leaving it at all of our little towns. And so it was just a really great example of Pure Michigan, but also the Traverse City area and their part in it, just telling the story in markets to attract people from different areas of the country. We had done more regional and statewide, I believe even the Chicago markets, but Pure Michigan reached out and helped out our tourism industry quite a bit. Back then, during the recession, at the height of the recession, I was running this wayfinding firm, and we found that the spigot had turned off on new business. And so I partnered with a colleague, actually a competitor at the time from Chicago, who wanted to create an LLC to pursue work offshore. And we took 2 trips over to the UAE at the time and pursued some projects together, putting our 2 staffs together. So we focused on, this was a really great example of a swivel where we focused on our primary value that the clients saw, the wayfinding consulting. And we not only created a brand new partnership, but we also reached out well beyond the geographic boundaries that we had created for our companies at the time. And that was just born out of necessity. So that LLC eventually led to me leaving Corbin Design and starting another company with the same former competitor, now my partner. And we're reaching out for new opportunities there. So, how are we doing with COVID-19? So we were just, Chris and I, kind of brainstorming about how this might work. So there's an example here of a provider, an operator that's called Fountain Point, and they're right on Lake Leelanau. And I know of lots of families that come from all over the place every year to Fountain Point to have their family reunions, especially a friend from the Cincinnati, Ohio area. And so I thought it'd be a great idea if they were to bring experiences from outbound in Leelanau County right to the people as a premium experience for those individuals. And they could say, so for a certain number of dollars per person, we'll bring this chef in, we'll have a barbecue, say, we'll have meat from this local butcher, we'll have veggies and other good stuff from farmers, we'll have our local distilleries and local breweries come there and be represented, and they can all come together and partner for the residents at Fountain Point. So I thought that that would be a really great way to keep people in place, reduce the risk of exposure, you know, like maybe going out to a restaurant or going out to a wine tasting or winery. So bring the services to those individuals on a very customizable basis, and then therefore build the brands and the business at the same time. So in terms of what Traverse City is doing to accommodate the visitors, which are undoubtedly on their way, as you may know, the governor's opening businesses at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, that's tomorrow. So the Downtown Development Authority is shutting down 2 blocks of the downtown area to allow for more outdoor seating, more retail outdoors, depending on the weather, and a lot more social distancing for the folks with strollers and cycles and other things that are coming down to shop in those retail districts. And that may be something that happens all summer long. Long term, we're engaging in conversations about maximizing parking on the edges of these districts, and then taking existing surface lots and turning those into incentivized developments for workforce housing. So developers would be brought in and they'd be given subsidies and other incentives, tax incentives, to build multi-purpose buildings with workforce housing as the primary element. And what else? We've got a local event company that's created lots of virtual running races. Some of them are free, some of them are pay what you can. And you track all of your activity through a mobile app like Strava or something like that. You report your activity and then you participate in virtual races and you're building that brand. But the interesting thing that Running Fit is doing is they're saying it's this far between this lighthouse and that lighthouse. So when you've completed that distance, then you've finished that part of the route. So they're bringing the tourism aspect into it, even though folks can't actually be running from lighthouse to lighthouse. Thought that was very creative. And then here, local campgrounds as well. Private campgrounds have been housing healthcare workers and other essential employees in trailers that are available for those that have long commutes and they would need to be quarantined from their families anyways because of their work. They opened up trailers to folks, and then local restaurants and citizens have been bringing in food to those folks to keep them sustained. So there's a little bit of income for the campground operator since campgrounds are not open. And also, I think, for the owners of those trailers as well. And that's what we collected.
Cool, thanks, Mark. And then if you go to the blog as well, you'll see a whole bunch of examples based on different sectors. And we wanted to just document the ways that other industries, other sectors in the tourism industry are making that swivel. A couple at the end here, I just wanted to talk about, we've all seen, a lot of these swivels have gotten a lot of media attention recently, and the marketer in me says that's, you know, one of the big assets of being super creative. We've all seen the dining for one, you know, that's spread around on social media. The other one is the pool noodle patio seating, where people wear a pool noodle on their head to sit at the patio, which, you know, keeps social distance. The one I thought was really funny was the social distancing blow-up dolls. So those are the ones where restaurants are using tasteful blow-up dolls and putting them in seats that aren't allowed to be occupied to keep social distance. Rebecca was sharing the Visit Houston contest, where it's all about Hugh, and they've got some dining incentives to do takeout and then document it and submit it for contests. So if you get a chance, click on that link for what Houston's doing, because it's really spectacular. And then Amanda was sharing the lobster by phone. So there's a lobster fisherman on the East Coast that the fisheries, dried up, if you will, and this gentleman figured out that he can get more money per lobster if it's custom ordered. So you place your order, he goes out and catches the lobster in the trap just for you and delivers it to you. So that's a really, really smart way. So those are some examples, and I think this is the perfect time to open it up to all of you to share what you're doing, or if you're swiveling, or if there's some other things you've seen on the internet or a colleague has shared with you about ways that operators are using this as an opportunity to add value, to change tact, or do something really creative. So I think we'll open up the floor here and see what you guys have to share. Who wants to go first?
Chris, if I could, I have a quick question for Mark. Mark,
go ahead.
You were talking about how Pure Michigan reached out back in 2010, and then again, I'm just curious with respect to what's going on with the governor opening businesses as of 12:01 a.m. Where does Pure Michigan fit in, and how do they start marketing these businesses and communicate with the governor's office?
Yeah, so unfortunately, what I've heard is that there's going to be a significant decrease in funding for Pure Michigan. State budgets are very much impacted by the business shutdown, and we have yet to see how every essential service is impacted by that. I think that people in general, if they're within driving distance and it's Memorial Weekend, you know how that works. They're all going to want to come north. And even though the governor's been opening regions, she's also been saying to folks, those regions are open for business, but don't go. So we're expecting an influx of people from the Southeast and Southwest Michigan that really aren't supposed to be here. But I don't think that Pure Michigan is in a position right now to do any sort of promotion until things open up 100%.
That's great. Anyone else? Anyone else have questions or things that they would like to share? Questions for our Michigan representative? I would just like to add, oh, sorry, go ahead, Fran.
No, I was just gonna pivot, swivel. I think just in terms of personal experience and the whole question around swiveling, I think the biggest swivel that we've all made, this is not just, this is us as a group, but also our guest and we need to keep engaged with it, is just in the way we are communicating and engaging with our clients, with our customers and so on, is totally switched from, what we were doing previously, which might have been a couple of emails and a phone call here or a marketing campaign there, where it's now much more engaging and reaching out to the community. And I know just internal with our own employees, we see that. We see it in the industries with hotels, for instance, really getting engaged with the caregivers and offering them discounts and so on, and also just giving that little extra note on the door to say thank you, or doing all the protocols that they need to around cleaning, but also giving them that comfort. And I think that's really been one of the biggest pivots or swivels that I've seen in the industry at all levels.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if I could just share an example that came across my desk this morning. Was we're working on a downtown project with the city of Owen Sound and downtowns, as we know, there's going to be some divine reinvention required. And our favorite local cheese shop that used to have table service, they used to do happy hour, they're licensed, you could do a charcuterie. They just announced that because of the current situation, they shifted to online sales really fast. They'd never done them before. Now she's eliminating all of her table service, and she's just doing online sales, gift baskets, walk-ins, prepackaged things. She's eliminated the dining component because she's seen that there's a new profit center there. Like, she was very positive about it. She was apologetic to remove the spirits and the social aspect of her shop, because a lot of people went there, but she's seen with the online ability of what she can offer. So it's kind of a lose-win, but she made that decision within, what are we at, 68 days into this. So that's pretty, it shows how robust, businesses are.
Yep.
Yeah, no, indeed.
Anyone else have anything to share?
Oh yeah, Mark, I have a question for you from Donna. She was asking about the drive-in movie theater, and that became a festival concert event venue. And do you think the drive-in will come back? And what if you don't own a car?
Great. So we have the Cherry Bowl Drive-In west of Traverse City in Honor, and it's the oldest continually operating drive-in in the U.S. It's your typical old style drive-in theater with the centralized concession stand, and it's an enclosed building. But I would think that would be just perfect. I mean, you can do drive-bys and stay with your nuclear family or the friends that have been quarantined with you, and go out and enjoy something together without having to mix with other folks or really be too concerned about getting too close to other folks. I think that that's a fantastic idea. I do know that because all movie theaters are closed, the Cherry Bowl isn't open yet, but I wonder if they're going to do something special for that type of venue, which is very different than sitting in an enclosed theater.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah. I know the Toronto Zoo is opening to drive through.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which seems to be, and then they're also doing overnight camps, virtual overnight camps, because in Ontario, we won't be having overnight camps this year for kids. So I thought that was an interesting idea. And just on that missing Hugh, I really liked that concept. But this, the DMO Visit Houston, their whole concept, this whole initiative around trying to attract the domestic market, knowing that people aren't coming in from elsewhere. In this contest, Missing Hugh, they're getting people to buy dinner from a local restaurant, organize a virtual dinner party where everybody in their group on the Zoom call is eating from the same restaurant, and then posting pictures and using the hashtag, and there's some sort of prize at the end. But very interesting that swivel to focus on the domestic market, right? And getting local businesses involved. I thought that was really
yeah, I would say, yeah, the company I work for has multiple global outbound travel brands, and the reality is, where we would normally build Canadian product to sell to Aussies, we're now adjusting all of our Canadian product now to sell to Canadians, and then eventually, depending, to Americans, which means shorter itineraries, different optionals, different dates. That's what every global region, and we have operating and sales offices in just about every major source market that I'm considering. We're adjusting all of our product to speak to our own backyard, which is a difficult proposition, but I think that's for the suppliers of a potential new market, those operators that might not have otherwise been there. We're here.
Yeah, definitely. And as soon as that US market opens, I know there's a lot of people, especially in Ontario, that are just sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for that border to open. Hey, Joanne, what down along the south coast of Ontario, Lake Erie, you've got lots of cool things happening with operators working together and bundling products and shipping online and doing what's going on down there?
I was actually talking to somebody yesterday, and they're looking at an interesting model. They're an accommodator with a really nice restaurant kitchen. And so recognizing that domestic travel is going to be key right now, we're kind of forgetting about our accommodations and what role they play. So they had an interesting idea where they were thinking about having a stay in your room package, but with that package, you would be invited to participate in a virtual experience with their kitchen. So it could be a wine and cheese pairing tasting or whatever it may be. But the idea is that you get into your room, everything's placed out there and ready for you, ready to go, sanitized and clean. And then you can log in and get into the kitchen and do a tasting event with their chef. So I thought that was pretty cool from an accommodations perspective and how they're staying relevant. We have a chocolate producer too. She has just been moving ever since this has started, and she put together some emergency chocolate kits because at this point, who doesn't need some self-care? And she was out delivering these branded emergency chocolate kits, which I thought was incredibly brilliant. We also just saw one event come online, which is a pretty big event. It's out of London. It's the Western Fair, and they have the beer and barbecue show every June. And so knowing this year that was not going to look the same, they ended up moving the platform online. It's a $5 ticket to get access to the platform. And basically you get tours of the breweries, you get to talk to people. I think they've got a Q&A on beer philosophy. Like it's everything that they've standed for in terms of their brand, but they're delivering it in a very different way. So there's some pretty cool people that are doing interesting things. We've got an operator, Windsor Eats. I saw Adriana was on, but I think he's off the line now. He's put together I can't remember the name of it right now. That's terrible. But anyways, a box where you can order all your local beer, wine. He's got a barbecue kit. And so essentially he's acting as the retail and delivery system for all these local wineries and breweries, and also some of the meat producers as well. So definitely a lot of swiveling happening. It's really interesting to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thanks for those, Joanne. Those are great. Mark, we've got just a couple of minutes here. Do you want to do a little summation about what you see in the future, and especially from a US perspective?
Well, you know, having relayed my experience in the last time that we went into recession and having to think well beyond the sort of preset ideas that I'd had about my business, I'm back in that position again. I'm now a sole proprietor, but I'm working on 2 new LLCs with different groups of consultants to not only expand my capabilities and my outreach, but also to bring together teams with folks that have different sets of skills. So that's design consulting. But I think we all need to be, thinking in terms of taking the authentic value that we provide and that our clients know we possess and can share, and then sort of adding those to the collective value of other related offerings, or maybe even very different offerings. The example that you provided a minute ago about the boxes, I know that Traverse City downtown merchants are also offering some sort of type of emergency box where you can order the components from different downtown businesses and then go and just pick the box up. You can ship those boxes to other people. You know, I think that these are merchants that typically would see each other as competitors, and now they're like, hey, we're all in the same sandbox. Let's work together and make something happen. And I think that's only going to benefit all of the folks in our retail districts to have that mindset shift. You're muted, Chris. There we go.
I knew it would do that. Sorry, we're at 2:30, and This has been great. We want to keep it tight because we know you've got 17 other Zooms left to fill your day. So we want to respect that. And again, all of this content that we talked about is online, is on the Rhubarb Collective website. There was a link posted in the comments, but you can just go check it out. And any questions, fire them over to any one of us. And there's been a lot of networking we found on the calls from peer to peer, from everybody on the calls. So that's one of the positive outcomes of this. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week for Fran's session on Fran. Self-plug.
Trust equals travel.
Trust equals travel. You heard it here first. Next Thursday. Okay, thanks everybody. See you later, and thanks so much for joining us. Thank you.
Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Cheers.
You bet.